This Random Life, and with you, your host, Salon Munava from Turkey. So it's very exciting to be here, and I'm just getting to know the city of Gaziantep. And in the meantime, of course, I'm working from the hotel. So the topic that I want to talk to you about today is the number one saboteur that I see a lot in so many of clients that I coach, um, especially around being the saboteur or like recognizing the saboteur that we may all have or many of us have, and that saboteur being the victim, falling victim to our emotions, falling victim to the time, falling victim to job, money, duty station, name it. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I was coaching an amazing client recently who is a humanitarian and wants to, transition from her job to being promoted to another job. And she was doing this test and she realized that the outcome of that test came out where one of the things that she needs to work on is one of the saboteurs that she needed to work on is victim. And she told me that she usually does not recognize herself as being a victim because she um, feels like the victims have certain characteristics and she feels she's not that. And she couldn't understand quite why that was, why the test results came out as saboteur, right? Now, one of the things that we were discussing to find out how this test results came out is we were discussing her problems with one of her bosses, where she feels so upset about it and she feels so angry with her and the whole situation. She tried to avoid this boss at all cost and all of this, and then she has been having a lot of health issues lately, and it's emotional. Possibly emotional reasons behind it, right? And then I was telling her that one of the reasons that she may not be recognizing is because it's one of those advanced level way of feeling victim, but we may not recognize it, is when the reason why we feel bad is because of someone else's behavior, right? So the reason why we feel bad and we can't think about that person, we can't stop thinking about that person, and we take all of the problems to home, even though we're not really talking to that person. Like in her case, she wasn't really talking to the boss anymore. She was trying to avoid the boss at any cost, and she was just emailing back and forth, but no verbal communication with the boss, but still at home she was feeling all of these negative emotions about that person. And then I was telling her that one of the ways that we need to recognize that we're falling victim in that moment is we're falling victim to our boss's behavior, right? So our boss's behavior is triggering all the possible negative emotions, and therefore we're now feeling bad about ourselves, bad about that person, and therefore we cannot even stop thinking about that person. That's how we fell a victim to that situation instead of recognizing that she is far more powerful to decide how to react to the situation of the boss's behavior, right? And then this got me thinking to how many of us may not really recognize how we're falling victim to, especially emotions that we keep having, especially emotions around hatred, for instance, emotions around fear. We may not really recognize how we might be falling victim to those emotions. And the way that you recognize is by you feeling like the reason why you can't really go and transition to what you want is because you are so afraid, right? So now when you're thinking that, well, I can't really transition to what I want to because I'm so afraid, now you have fallen victim to that fear. And the reason why you've fallen victim to that fear is you're feeling powerless. You're feeling like you can't really go and do the things that you want to. That's how you know that you have fallen victim to that emotion, fear, right? So a lot of other clients that I coach is we fall victim to emotions of disappointment. And the way that we may not even recognize that that's what's happening is because we now, for instance, keep saying that, for instance, let's say that you are disappointed in a relationship, right? You are disappointed in a love relationship, and you are telling yourself, well, I will never build a relationship anymore. I will never date a guy anymore or a girl anymore. I'm just so fed up, is now your past experience, the disappointment, is dictating whether you now are building the next relationship or not. You see, you can see that how we are in subtle ways falling victim to our own emotions that were the reaction to a situation. And instead of feeling like every situation is different and I decide how I want to process and how I want to treat this situation and how I want to continue going for the love that I want, instead of doing that, we just keep feeling victim to that disappointment that we haven't processed. Right. So I just wanted to give you several ways for you to recognize within yourself how you might be falling victim to emotions, especially fear, hatred, blame, all of these emotions, right? Powerlessness, because those emotions are now defining what you can and cannot do, how you can and cannot do, whether you want to stay in the humanitarian sector or not, are defined by those emotions without maybe even realizing that if that's really the way you want to be defined by those emotions, right? Another way that I think we're heavily falling victim to is the timelines, time concept. I will explain in a minute because I want to just give you a list of all the uh, common circumstances or situations that we may fall victim to. The other one is falling victim to our jobs and money and duty station, right? So these are like how some of the common ones. Now, when I talk about time, the way that you will recognize that you have fallen victim to a time constraint is when you keep feeling like you have no time or you cannot really control and be in charge of your time. That's when you've fallen victim to your time, because now you are using your time as a reason why you can't do the things you want to do, right? So the way that you can see is that whenever that time or time constraint defines what you can and cannot do, now you feel victim, meaning you feel dependent or at the mercy of that circumstance that is outside of you. The other way that time, I think, often defines in transitioning conversation is we just keep feeling like we will take a long time to do something else that we want to. Now, again, we're using time against ourselves by saying that, well, I don't really have that time, or I believe it takes a lot of time, even though we have no clue how long it will take. But we just use it as a reason for not going for what we want to. That's how we have fallen victim to that time constraint. Another way that is very common is when we use our age against ourselves, right? When we say, well, I'm this many years old, so I can't really go for that thing. I cannot really transition to what I want to because I am this old, or I am not, I'm too young to be leading a big teams, for instance. Again, we're using time against ourselves and falling victim where we are making the time basically more powerful than ourselves. The other way that I think we often get victim to is our jobs. And another amazing client was telling me today that he was saying that in his life, the job that he did was not really his first choice, but it somehow the job determined his future instead of him determining his future. Right. So he was saying that at the job and the duty station that he went to, he never really felt like he was choosing them. Instead, they were choosing him because in that a point in his life, he just thought, well, I just need to make these sacrifices to go and build my career. And there will be a point later where I will be then deciding what job I go to and what duty station I go to. And then he feels like he has never really gotten to that place where he is doing that. And instead, all the sacrifices that he made didn't really pan out, right? So therefore, you can see that now we're using our jobs as a reason for how we didn't experience the life we want to. We didn't really get to be with our loved ones the way we want to, right? So we let our jobs determine what we can and cannot do in life. And a lot of the times, I also coach humanitarians on work life balance, where we discuss how work cannot be the all determining powerful thing unless we want it to be, right? So we can't just give so much power to work and say, well, my work define how I can live my life, when I can go to vacation, when I cannot, or when I can see my family, when I cannot. When we give so much power to our job, then obviously at some point we'll start resenting it. We'll start not liking it, because that's how we have fallen victim to allowing our job to dictate all the things in our lives, and therefore we're not liking ourselves or our jobs and the job as well, right? So therefore you can see how we have fallen victim to allowing the job be so much more powerful than ourselves, right? Now, the money part, I think, is the biggest way that I would say humanitarians that I coach fall victim to. And the way that it works is that we make money so much more powerful than ourselves, that we keep feeling money is the reason why we keep doing this. For some of us, of course, and this is not everyone, obviously, right? But some of the humanitarians, they wish they didn't have to do that, but they feel like in times of crisis, I'm getting paid at least, so I will just keep doing it even though I don't want to do it. So that's when we have made the money so much more powerful than ourselves and our abilities, and therefore we've fallen victim into dependency, or at the mercy of money. And the other way that we do that is when we feel like this money that we're earning now, we can't really get it anywhere else. And therefore, we need to just continue doing the things that we may not really like the way it's done or how it's done, right? Even though we may like them the mission of how it should be, but we may not really like how it's done, and therefore we just keep doing it for the sake of doing it, because we feel like we can't really earn this money somewhere else. And that's how we have fallen victim to money being the all determining powerful factor in our lives, and us feeling powerless. Now, when we start looking at, or at least recognizing how we are doing this, how we are falling victim to money or job or duty station, or the time or emotions or even past, or there are so many things that we could fall victim to. The way that the easiest way to recognize is that when you feel, if you were really powerful, if you really believed you are powerful, empowered, whichever the way that resonates with you most, where you feel like you can do whatever you want to, you are capable of doing whatever you want to, you can always rely and trust yourself more than the external factors, in the sense of you can do things or make things work the way you want to. If you really felt that power, would you really let that time or that duty station or that job or that emotion define you, right? Would you really let them define where you're going and how you're going? I'm assuming no, right? So that's really the easiest way for you to recognize your own saboteur, is when you are making something outside of you, or even something within you, like emotions, right? um, be more powerful, therefore allow them to govern you rather than you governing them. Does that make sense? So if I use the example that my client was giving today about how instead of allowing her boss dictate how she feels about work, about her experience at work, her deciding how she's going to feel in that interaction, no matter how the boss behaves, then she will be showing herself how powerful she is. The same goes with another client that I mentioned, right? If he were to choose the job that he wants to, go to the duty station that he wants to, instead of just going for the one that he feels like he has to, because he needs to sacrifice, because he cannot really do anything else, or he cannot really go for the things that he wants to. Now he is falling victim to those job or the duty station, and therefore letting them decide, right, instead of him deciding. So as soon as we start realizing that if we are not feeling more powerful than our external circumstances, whether it's time, job, money, jurisdiction, whatever else that you may see, competition oftentimes, or other people's behaviors. Or as soon as we recognize that, we also don't need to feel victim to our emotions, our thought process, our belief systems, but instead relying or recognizing that we are more powerful than any of these things. As soon as we recognize that, then we are able to create that freedom within to be going for whatever we want to and not sacrificing anything anymore. And I was also discussing this topic with another client from the religious perspective. And if you are a faith-based or like lifestyle, or if you are a believer in God or in a high power, whichever the way you define it. I was discussing with another client of mine about this. Is we were talking about how if she does not recognize this God within her, the mighty, almighty God within her, and all of her abilities that were created in a divine way by God, if she doesn't recognize that, then she will be suffering from those external situations. She will be suffering from her emotions, her belief systems. She will be suffering from her limiting beliefs, right? Because she did not make God more powerful than those external circumstances or the emotions within. I hope it makes sense for those of you who are listening to me from the faith perspective, right? So, in other words, if we're not making ourselves and our like that we are created by God or higher power, and if we don't make that higher power God more almighty than those external circumstances or those emotions or belief systems within that are limiting us, if we don't make that almighty the God, then um, we're not really recognizing the God's almightiness or God's power. Rather, we're giving power to those things outside of us, or rather, we're giving power to our fears or our emotions that we actually don't like, right? So, therefore, as soon as we start seeing that, how we are, if we were really like, even if, imagine if we were powerful, like, even if you can't really believe it, and of course you can also understand and get curious as to why do you not believe it, but even if, let's say, we have that feeling not accessible to us, at least let's imagine if we were really believing we're that powerful, we are created that powerful, we have all the abilities that we need to live the life we want to. If we really believed it, then would we really use time as a constraint for not going for what we want to? Would we really listen to those emotions of fear and not really go for what we want to? Would we really let jobs define us, or instead only go for the jobs we want to, right? Would we really let those duty stations define us, or we would go for the one that we want to? And I'm assuming the answer is no, we would just go for the one that we really want to. And we wouldn't use any of those external circumstances or our emotions as reasons for not living the life we want to. And that's why I think it's such an important topic for us to talk about, how our saboteurs within us, without obviously us realizing, are making us feel powerless and giving so much power to those things, or to our emotions, even to our emotions of fear, disappointment, hatred, and therefore we just feel like we can't really do anything about it, and we feel at the mercy of those emotions, and therefore we just don't end up doing the things that we love to do. And therefore, one of the amazing biggest ways to build that power within is recognizing and also start um, practicing trusting ourselves fully, trusting God or high power, if you believe in that, so that we start realizing so much how much power we have within to create whatever the reality that we want to. And that's what I really want to help you transition to, is help you create that freedom within and stop falling victim to any of the external circumstances that I mentioned, but also to any of the emotions that you don't want to be falling victim to, and therefore creating the life and impact you want to. Okay, my dears, if you would like to work with me on this topic, absolutely come coach with me, message me or email me at cell@complaintfree.life. And